Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Balanced Boss Mom podcast. I'm your host, Erica, and today we are having another fulfilled episode. Now, this episode is all about honesty, grounding, conversations about motherhood, healing, identity, and what it is like to take care of ourselves while holding so many roles. As a mother, we hold so many different roles, as I've stated in previous episodes, which is pretty cool. So, today's episode is one I personally have been excited about because we're diving into something I've been genuinely curious about, which honestly, I have been very curious about this. So, for a very, very long time, by the way, just want to say. So, before I introduce my guests, we are going to be talking about EMDR, trauma healing, and the nervous system regulation. Now, I touch a little bit of basis about nervous system regulation before in a little bit of different episodes, but we're going to dive deep a little bit more and a little bit deeper into these topics today. So if you ever felt like you understood your patterns logically about your body, just won't catch up, this episode is completely for you. I always think my body never catches up at this point. Being a mama, it just never catches up. So this episode again discuss about trauma, anxiety, and the nervous system healing. Please listen carefully, take notes as needed. If this is a trigger to you, please make sure that you take a pause, come back to the episode later, whether you're watching it, listening to it on Apple or Spotify, wherever you're listening to. We're just going to get down and I'm going to say dirty. Okay. Down and dirty. All right. So I am so honored to welcome Kiara Brown to the podcast. Kiara is a licensed professional counselor, certified consulting, traumatized form, EMDR trained, and the owner of Lunar Counseling, where she blends traditional psychotherapy, not psychological, psychotherapy, y'all, okay, with hypotherapy. I need to know what hypotherapy is, okay? I'm
Yeah.
making you laugh right now. So I'm excited. I'm really excited about this. She also hosts the Lunar Counseling podcast where she has an honest ground conversations with therapists about what therapy looks like, which I'm excited to listen to because I'm going to be adding it onto my Apple podcast, and not the internet version or the, I don't want to say internet version, but the social media version, like Instagram version. So without further ado, because I've already made her laugh already, as you can see, because I'm a comedian. Might need to add that to my resume. But without further ado, Kiara, welcome to the Balanced Boss Mom podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I am super excited to be here. I'm ready to have a fun time.
I am excited for you to be here. Like I said, I make all my guests feel like it's having a girlfriend conversation in the living room. So just imagine we're in the living room at this point. And I don't know these terms because, again, I think I should add comedian to my resume. But, hey, let me know if I don't need to be a comedian. Just be a podcaster. Just saying.
I mean, you can have a multifaceted career, and it all works out.
Yeah, it does work out. So before we dive deep, can you share a little bit about you, not just your credentials, but what led you into trauma work and this integrative approach to healing?
So it's been a journey personally. Like in my career, I worked a lot in community mental health, and I worked in group homes. I worked in like inpatient facilities. I was working a lot with kids,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like whenever you're working with kids, you see the impact that the system has on them.
Okay.
And the common theme with every kid, like regardless of diagnosis, regardless of age, is parental trauma, like generational trauma
Mm-hmm.
getting put onto them. And then you blow it out and you go like, oh, okay, so like what happened to the parents for
Mm-hmm.
them to be acting this way with their kids? And it's like their parents the same thing. So it was
Okay.
just trauma versus trauma versus trauma, just trickling down all the way. So like, and I had a training on the impact of childhood trauma
Mm-hmm.
on brain development in children, and it even starts in utero, like whenever the baby like is developing inside the womb,
Okay.
it can affect development there. And just learning how can we help fix the brain in those
Mm-hmm.
ways kind of like drove me to knowing, okay, I want to help people with trauma, because it doesn't always have to be like the bigger traumas like assaults or car accidents or something with the military. It can even be like the smaller emotional neglect ones that
Mm-hmm.
seem like might not seem big in the moment, but they leave such a lasting impact that it's not always noticeable right then. But the more they happen, it's like okay, and a stack of rocks, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can only go so high till like the last one puts on, and then it all comes crumbling down.
Okay. Okay. So kind of like, I don't want to say a cause and effect situation in a more layman's terms, but I do understand a little bit about how um, trauma can start from the womb. Because, like, I know they always say protect your space and protect your grounding when, like, you're like pregnant, or even if you're a person that's not pregnant, kind of try to protect your peace at certain
Yeah,
points. Okay.
yes,
So,
definitely.
was there a moment when traditional talk therapy stopped feeling like it wasn't enough?
Honestly, it didn't happen until like almost. I had always had like an inkling for like
Mhm.
something needed to be more than just like talking it out, right?
Okay.
But like I had things happening in my personal life from like something more needs to give, like
Mhm.
for healing, and like I had my own healing journey, and I was up so like getting back in touch with your body
Mhm.
heals the emotional piece more than
Mhm.
just talking it out, because you can talk it out all day, but
Mhm.
if you're not making like actual changes in like, your behavior and how you're actually thinking about things, something is going to get better.
Mhm.
And I met an amazing woman, and she's not my coach, and I love her to death. And she helped guide me in like other ways. And I
Mhm.
got trained, certified in EMDR now, and it's
Mhm.
just been a whole thing where like the body really keeps score, and that's why they have the whole book of the body keeps the score, and it's
Mhm.
phenomenal. And it does have a little bit of jargon in it, but they do kind of like put it in layman's terms as well.
Okay, that is cool. That's cool. So I know we're about to change gears a little bit more about why talk therapy isn't always often talked about. So one of the things I hear all of the time, and honestly have felt myself when I've had therapy or different therapy sessions, is I know where this is coming from and I've talked about it a million times. So why am I still reaching or reacting to this point? So my question for you is why does insight alone sometimes not create change when trauma or anxiety is involved?
That's a great question, and like I said, a lot of people have that question. And it's because whenever you stay logical with
Mm-hmm.
something, you're not hitting the emotional piece that's still sticking with you. And the
Okay.
emotional piece is what gets really stored in your body in different spots. So that's why you have to really get in touch with your mind and your body. Once those two things are aligned, then you can start making real change, because then you can actually physically feel better.
Okay. Okay. So, can you explain what happens in the nervous system when someone is stuck in a survival mode, especially like a high functioning woman and moms? Now, another question I do want to add to that is can you explain what high functioning is versus I've heard the term non-functioning before, or low functioning would be another layman's terms for non-functioning. So, can you explain the difference between the two?
Yeah. So high functioning is where you are operating at a level that's expected of you all the time. Like even though internally, like you are burnt out, overwhelmed, or you have like nothing left to give, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, or you feel like if you don't keep doing those things, something is going to fail, or someone's going to get hurt, or you're going to get hurt. So you push yourself beyond your limits. That's high functioning. It's where you're like always involved in the things. Low functioning or non functioning is where like you've gotten to the point where you functioned so high for so long,
Mm-hmm.
you've literally burnt out your body and your emotional reserves. So you just can't do it anymore.
Like you hit a breaking point, like you hit a
Yeah.
wall, so to speak, for
Yeah.
those that don't understand what those terms are. Okay. So back to the question is can you explain what happens in the nervous system when someone is stuck in survival mode in these kind of functioning modes?
Yeah. So in the nervous system, whenever like you are constantly in those modes, your body is flushed with cortisol, adrenaline, all of those things happening all the time. It's kind
Mm-hmm.
of like you are constantly in the fight or flight all the time. And whenever you're in that fight or flight mode, your memory
Mm-hmm.
decreases, because your brain is not able to really keep long-term memory whenever it's
Mm-hmm.
constantly just trying to survive. It just wants to make sure you're eating, you're sleeping, your basic needs are being met in those moments. That's
Okay.
why there's like it's really hard to stay emotionally regulated, because at that point you're just like, I just need to survive this moment.
At that
So then,
point
like,
you're just kind of like surviving and you're just not, your brain is kind of like turning off, whether it's pretty much burning out,
yeah,
so to
exactly.
speak. Okay.
And that's why a lot
Mhm.
of mothers get to a point where like they feel like they're really reactive,
Mm-hmm.
or like they just get to the point where like they're overstimulated, they're touched out, and then they start lashing out because their
Mm-hmm.
body's just been in such survival mode for so long that they can't control their own emotions. It's just gone.
So when it comes to, like, for example, the high functioning and the low functioning or non-functioning versions of ourselves, we lack in, I don't want to say we lack in self-awareness, but why does our bodies not care to, like, kind of react? You know how you react to flight or flight kind of mode, right? Why don't we react to being more self-aware when we know that we're in that high functioning mode or in that low function? Like, where's the awareness? Why are we not connected with that
So
awareness?
that's because whenever anyone has a lot of trauma or anxiety in their lives, they have disconnected their mind from their body. So your
Mm-hmm.
body may be telling you this is too much. We shouldn't be doing this more. We need to take a break. A lot of times your body is,
Okay.
especially if you're chronically ill, or if you have like migraines, any stomach issues, anything like that. That's your body saying you need to stop. But
Mm-hmm.
because we've learned that we have to keep going, keep functioning,
Mm-hmm.
our mind overrules our body, and we just completely ignore those signs. Like, oh, it's just like whatever, I ate something bad, or oh, I just need some sleep. Oh, I just need caffeine. You like
To get you
rationalize
through,
it out.
like get you through the day. Like, hey, I need to drink a Pepsi or a Sprite to get me throughout the day because you probably just lack of sleeping and you just need the 8 hours of sleep, but you can't sleep, for example.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Now I get it. I get it. I'm getting it. I'm getting it. Hey. Okay. So this is where my curiosity is starting to kick in, because when I've been hearing about the term EMDR pretty much everywhere, I've been hearing
Mhm.
about it. And I've been told that I need to get into EMDR. And I'm like, I've heard about it. I've heard some people been like, you get down, kind of like you're getting down and dirty. Okay.
Yes.
You're getting in there, you're getting in the thick of it. So, for those that don't know about the term EMDR, because they might feel brand new to them, can you explain what the term is, first and foremost? And how do you explain what it is in a real life, non clinical language?
Yeah. So EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing.
Mm-hmm.
So what that means is we are getting into the brain and having both sides of your brain active at the same time. Because if you do bilateral movements like this, like you go back and forth and you like have your eyes follow it, or you tap like this, or you
Mm-hmm.
have like they have you can get tactilely see with tappers, you're
Mm-hmm.
activating all of your brain. And you activate all of your brain, you're allowing both your logical part, which is like up here in your frontal lobe,
Mm-hmm.
and your animal emotional part, like back here in your brainstem,
Okay.
and you're allowing them to connect and really get to your emotional store of your memory. You're getting your logical mind offline in a way.
Mm-hmm.
It's like because it's going your emotional mind is coming up and allowing you to actually get to the deep emotions about what happened.
Okay. So that kind of scares me just a little bit. So I don't know if I'm going to do that in the future. Um, so what makes EMDR different from like traditional therapy? I know you said it's kind of like getting into the emotional side of things, which I think I want to try EMDR, but you just kind of scared me just a little. Just,
I don't mean to scare you, but because it's
just
not. Sorry, let's see.
no, no, you're fine.
Before you do any processing of a trauma,
Mm-hmm.
you were taught grounding techniques beforehand to keep you calm whenever these
Okay.
memories come up. And before I do any processing with anyone, we do months of training with making sure that you stay grounded and you stay calm in like any type of stressful situation. Because we're not going to go back to your deepest trauma if you
Mhm.
can't even handle your kids having a tantrum.
Right. Okay. I see it. I see what you're saying. So it's like a lot of people say that EMDR helps them heal a little bit faster versus traditional therapy. Do you believe that it heals them, like heals a person a little bit quicker? Or is it, I don't want to say like it's a quick fix to healing trauma, because trauma can be different from for multiple people. So do you think that it works faster than traditional therapy?
It does, but it's not like you said, it's not a quick fix. Like, I'm not saying you
Mhm.
only need one session of EMDR and you're fine, because there are numerous memories, numerous things that can be linked to your trauma memory.
Mm-hmm.
So EMDR will, if you can do it fully, and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times it's hard to do it like the full time at once because of just how therapy works and how insurance works and makes things challenging. If you can get back to the very first memory of your trauma, which is what we call your touchstone memory. So think of the root of a tree. It's the
Mm-hmm.
root of it, and
Mm-hmm.
everything else is what grew from it. If we can get to the root and knock out the root, the emotional volatility or upheaval from all the other memories goes away.
Okay.
So
So I want to dive a little bit more deeper into this. So, what is it like? Is it like where you're kind of like going back in time to like the very first, not necessarily the trauma, but like the very first core memory that's happened? Can you like take me, like dive me into deeply, like what is it like for a client to deal with a process like this? Is it like
yes,
you going back to that, like I said, the core memory?
yes. So what we would do is we ask like what is like your negative core belief of yourself. So it could be I'm not
Mm-hmm.
good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable, I'm whatever it is, like that core negative thought that you have.
Mm-hmm.
And then we try to find the positive thought that you want to have instead. So it's like, I am lovable regardless of what anyone else says. I am worthy of X, Y, and Z because like regardless, I can control what's in my power and leave what's not in my control alone. Whatever you
Mm-hmm.
want your positive thought to be.
Okay.
And and then we go and say find three memories of
Mm-hmm.
time where you had your positive experience, your positive thought, and you're like, yes, this is evidence of like I did it these times. And then we also go farther back to the first memory of like your negative thought of where you first felt unlovable. So we go all the way down to that part and clear that part out. And once you clear that part out,
Mm-hmm.
it's like killing a tree at its roots. It's not going to survive anymore and it will go away. The memories will still be there,
But it's not going to
but the
trigger as much as it used to be beforehand,
yeah.
right?
Oh,
Okay.
the emotional volatility would go away.
So is there a lot of misconceptions around EMDR that people may need to, if they're listening to this and they want to try it for the first time? Um, what are some of the misconceptions that people have about the therapy of EMDR?
They think that if they're coming to a therapist for EMDR, that the very first session, they're going to start processing the trauma, which is not the case. And
Okay.
any therapist that does it off the bat, in my opinion, is not really doing it right because there is like a complete protocol that you have to do, and that is getting those grounding techniques down really well, making sure the client has them down. Now, if someone has been working with a therapist and has their grounding skills down really well, and they want to do an EMDR intensive, that's different because they already have their grounding skills techniques, and they want to just have 3 or 4 hours going straight deep down in it and clearing out all of their therapy, like all of the things in one session.
Mm-hmm.
That is different. But if you want someone on something ongoing, your first 2, 3 months can just be about learning the grounding skills that you didn't have beforehand that you need now to be able to go to your trauma and really clear them out.
Now, another question I have is because I have, and I'm just throwing my own personal and reflections of me, I've had multiple therapists. Um, some of my therapists have been very strong. Some of my therapists, I've had a therapist ghosted me. So, for a person that's maybe looking for such assistance with either just traditional therapy or the EMDR therapy, what are some helpful tips to search for a therapist that they might need to maybe possibly go through their insurance first or self pay? What are some ways that they can find a therapist possibly in their area?
So I would recommend looking at a therapist website. If a therapist has a good website and they can clearly explain who they help, how they help them, what modalities they use, and even like who they are as a person,
Mhm.
so you can get like a really good feel for them. And then I always recommend having at least a 15-30 minute meetup before you actually schedule that first session. Because that meetup is like for you to get a feel for the therapist, tell the
Mhm.
therapist what you want to work on, make sure the therapist can actually help you with that area. Because some
Mhm.
people, like, I've had some people come to me, they want to help with like personality disorders, and it's not my specialty. So I don't, it's like, I'm not
You
going to
don't
help you with
specialize in
personality
that, so you
disorder.
can't really assist them on that. So, do you like
Yeah.
refer them to other, like, do you refer them and say, like, hey, Here's a different route to take. Maybe since I can't assist
Yeah.
you on this. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And you also want to make sure, like, whenever you meet with someone, that you vibe with them. I know,
Mm-hmm.
like, a lot of people say, like, it doesn't matter if you don't vibe with your therapist, but it really does, especially for a therapist. Like, if you don't feel like you can open up to that person and tell them your deepest, darkest secrets,
Mm-hmm.
that's not a fit for you.
Okay.
And like that's like really key. And if you have someone like ghost you without giving you like a logical reason, like if I mean I can understand like if they got sick, but then they'd also have to like also be willing to reschedule. But if they could just completely ghost you, then that's really unprofessional. And to me, it is like a huge red flag.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, cool. So we're getting into another layer of this conversation about surviving patterns for motherhood and building like a safe haven for motherhoods in this episode. So many women are often, I don't know where my tongue tightness is today, have the survival patterns. I know I, for myself, have a lot of survival patterns that I'm starting to see more as my daughter is changing and growing. Um, because now she's almost getting into like the preteens, and I'm like, everybody's like, be prepared. So the question I have is how do trauma shows up in motherhood specifically, even when we have like a good childhood, like maybe, for example, a mom never had trauma, but then later on have trauma in their adulthood. So how can we navigate that?
Honestly, I'm gonna say everyone has trauma. Like, there's no, I don't know anyone in this world that doesn't have some form of trauma. It doesn't have to be like I said, like the bigger traumas,
Mm-hmm.
but the smaller traumas linger. And parenthood, like for moms and dads, brings up and triggers our own core wounds.
Mm-hmm.
Because if our kids are acting a certain way, and when we were younger, we got punished for that way of acting,
Mm-hmm.
or our parents did something that was like, oh, like, stereotypical, like boys don't cry, right? So if you
Right.
have a son and he's having a tantrum, and then like the dad or the mom even could be like, boys don't cry. If you keep on crying, I'm gonna get you something to cry about. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's going to keep like that's going to tell that kid like
He's
crying
not
is bad.
able to cry and share what he
Yeah.
wants to share. And I like that you bring dads into the mix because I love the fact that um, dads go through mental health as well, you know? And have you seen dads do a little bit of have survival modes as well, especially back into the EMDR? Did I say that right?
Yeah, he did.
Okay, I did say that right.
EMDR.
I was
Yeah.
like, wait a minute, hold on. Did I say that right? Okay. But for dads, do they also do the that type of therapy too? Because I'm always, like I said, I'm very
Yeah.
curious about that.
EMDR is for can be for anyone who wants to like really get in deep and like do some like really deep healing work, because it really is just about getting to your own core wounding and clearing it out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like, kids bring out those wounds that we thought we might have resolved years ago if someone had like therapy before. But until
Mm-hmm.
you're in the thick of it, like if you had an experience whenever you were 5 and you have a 5-year-old kid, you're like, oh crap, like this happened to me whenever I was 5. I don't want this to happen to them whenever they're 5. So then you might overfunction for them. You might like be really protective in that space.
And I have a good example of this. So my daughter was or has been dealing with like a bullying situation. And it was so crazy for me because it was like 9 day. And it, like you said, it triggers your mind. And so it triggered my mind when I was 7 years old, her age, and she's now 8, but 7 years old. And I was kind of like, oh my God. I was like, the same thing is happening, but it's happening to my kid. And so now I'm a lot more, um, like you said, guarded, protected. Um, I do have like the gentle parenting, kind of style, which I would love to dive into about the different type of parenting, which is pretty cool. But I noticed when she was going through this, I was like, what can I tell her to help her in a situation like this? So she kept coming home, just kept coming home upset. She keeps bothering me, mommy. She keeps bothering me. And then it has gotten to the point now, the little girl has put like smiley faces on her back, like writing at this point now in her personal space. So fast forward gets into my brain. I'm like, Oh gosh, this is the same thing happened to me. Only difference was is I had glasses. I had these pink glasses. The girl broke my glasses. Was
Oh,
mean to me. So I told my daughter about the story about what happened to me when I was her age. And I ended up having to defend myself because she kept continuously doing this to me. So the question I have is the trigger that happened to me, now that I see it in her, is it like is it like a recurring pattern that is happening, or is it something that it can be fixed? Like can it be fixed? Will it be fixed? Or I just have questions about it because I've been very, very curious about like how I saw, like it literally was for me night and day. Like it was like she's the day version, I'm the night version, and it's just like I was like, wait a minute, this is a chapter that was supposed to be skipped, okay? Not a chapter that I was trying to be a part of. It's supposed to be skipped. I need a little help on that. I need a little help on that.
so I mean, it's not cliche, but stereotypes are stereotypes for a reason. And like, unfortunately, kids do have to experience some form of adversity to learn resiliency. But
Mm-hmm.
if you've gone through a situation and then you know how to be resilient in those situations, you can teach your daughter
Mm-hmm.
how to defend herself, how to keep herself emotionally regulated in those moments,
Mm-hmm.
and how to stand up for herself like in a calmer way. So like saying like, okay, if this girl is doing X, Y, and Z to you, use
Mm-hmm.
your words, tell her to stop, and say what would happen if she doesn't stop. So like if this girl keeps on getting in her space, say if you don't stop, I'm going to tell a teacher, I'm going to tell the principal, I'm going to call my mom, I'm going to get. I don't want to say like get back at her because like that can cause another cycle, but
Yeah.
like kind of keep it like not from getting physical, but also just saying like very firm. Like if I don't like this, you need to stop, and if you don't stop, this will happen to you. And then her following through on it
And
is so
that's the
important.
thing that she has such a loving spirit. So she's so used to everybody like introducing themselves, like being very nice and warm and welcoming. For some reason, she's already done what you just stated. Like, hey, I'm gonna tell the teacher, I'm gonna tell the principal, I've already told my mom, and she continuously keep doing it. Um, and I don't condone violence because it's like not the way to go. But it's like I feel like the situation is just not being resolved because it's like I've talked to the teachers. My spouse talked to the principal. It's just still evoluted and still not being dissolved. Like they're like, oh, we separated them. I said, obviously not, because she keeps coming home upset, you know? So another thing I've noticed, and maybe you could help me with in this episode, is anxiety, because anxiety in a child is different versus anxiety for an adult. So with her, she does this, like if you say, hey, I need you to answer a math question, for example, she'll try to answer it and then she shuts down. And I've been trying to figure that part out for a while because she doesn't like being put on the spot. She just automatically shuts down. And I'm wondering, where is that stemming from? Is it something that I'm personally rubbing off on her? I mean, I'm very like, I don't try to smother her. I try to tell her, you're invited into this. I'm your mom. You know, it's a safe
Yeah.
space. You could tell me anything. But I've noticed that since her very first day of school, like I want to say pre-K, kindergarten, and ever since then, like up to now, you know, being in second grade, it's new challenges and things like that. So she's like, if she's like put on the spot, she'll shut down, or if it's something is too hard, she shuts down. And I want to reverse that and give her confidence more, because we've all talked about it. Like we're like, it's the confidence, it's a confidence shift. So I'm wondering, am I doing something
No, you're not. I mean, if you might have been anxious whenever you're pregnant with her, like it might have like trickled in, something you did wrong. And a lot of kids, especially whenever they have a high, I mean, like high achieving in the family, they are
wrong?
afraid of failure or
That's
like
what I've
being or
been
like letting them
noticing.
down.
I've been noticing that she's very hard on herself, and it's scary to watch from a mom standpoint, because I'm like, the older you get, I'm like, this is a new, like math is new, you know, reading is new, writing is new. So you're going to face a challenge in your life where it's not going to be what you expect all the time. But I want her to be like, I can do it. I can persevere. This is really good for me to do. And for the moms out there, I want to express that you don't have to feel guilty for wanting your child to succeed. And it's something that it's a pattern with me where when I was in school with my mom, I would always, I got to get that A, I got to get that B. I can tell
Mhm.
you a comparison that I have with my mom where, and I love my mom. Mom, if you're hearing another episode, I love you dearly. But yeah, because every episode she's probably like, stop dragging me like this. And I'm like, I love you. I'm not dragging you. But I noticed where I did say when I was pregnant with my daughter, I said I don't want her to live through the eyes of my life, of my lens. I want her to
Mhm.
be able to create her own path. Explain to me, hey mom, I don't want to I don't want to do basketball, for example. I want to do volleyball. Okay, go do it. Whereas society reverses itself, I lived through my mom's eyes pretty much my whole life.
I
So,
mean, I think the hard part too is like in society, we're so lauded for our achievements, right? We're
mhm,
not celebrated for just being us. Like we're celebrated for like achieving a thing. So like for example, like I was the same way when I was growing up. I if I got a B in school, I called it honors failing. Like I could not accept lower than an A for myself,
mhm,
which caused a lot of stress and anxiety for myself growing up, like all the way through grad school. And it got to the point where like I remember parents and I were on the way home one day from going out to eat for dinner. My siblings are older than me, so they were already out of the house, and like I made a comment like I have to be better than them for you to
mhm,
love me and be proud of me. And my parents were like, "What? We love you regardless." But in
mhm.
my head, I had internalized or like warped all of their praise for me doing well in something. It's like I'm only worth it if I did well in this thing.
And
It wasn't their intent.
that's how I was. I think it's weird that the generations, we're millennials. So our
Yep.
generation is going through a time where we're dealing with high rents, trying to figure out how to get food for our children. Just a lot of high things that are happening in our society where I feel like the generation before us really didn't, I'm not saying achieve or taught us these type of things, but it's very scary to look at the generation behind us, like for our children, for example, where they get taught electronically, they're being taught, not fully like, hey, for example, hey, go run outside and play like we used to be able to do till the street light comes on. They can't do that anymore, for example. And I like how we're talking about where the patterns that we seek from our childhood into our children's childhood, because I want to change that narrative, especially for mental health for children,
Yeah.
because diving into, like you said, for the anxiety portion, I want to be able to give the tools not only for myself for near future, but also give the tools for other moms or dads or women, or even if you're an aunt or uncle that sees your niece or nephew going through these like anxiety, for example, because it's not often, anxiety is not even talked about often enough, which it needs to really be talked about.
Yeah. It does. And honestly, like just on my own personal thing, like my son, he's 5,
Mm-hmm.
and he is a very anxious child.
Mm-hmm.
And like I know all the tools. I know all the things, but also like knowing you are a mom,
Mm-hmm.
so I can't be his therapist. So even like we can all teach our kids and we can model how to manage and regulate our emotions, which is what we
Mm-hmm.
all need to do. But also knowing sometimes our kids won't listen to us when it comes to how to fully process their emotions because we're also always in the these are the rules, you have to follow these rules piece
Mm-hmm.
while balancing the nurturing piece. And
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to do all three of like when teaching coping skills, being nurturing and being a disciplinarian. It can be
Mm-hmm.
really challenging, especially if as a single any single mom. It's like you're balancing essentially 6 loads because you're also handling the other partner's roles as well.
Mm-hmm.
So like, if you do have an anxious child, I will always advocate starting children in therapy young because then they can actually have an unbiased third party to talk
Mm-hmm.
to and teach them the skills that they need to regulate their emotions. And it can do them so much. It can do them more good. Even if they're only in it for a year, it
Mm-hmm.
like the challenge, like the education that they get There's like knowing themselves, knowing the skills will last a lifetime.
Yeah, and I can't agree with you more about a child going into therapy because, like you said, starting off young, I didn't realize how much pressure they children put on themselves until I saw it for myself with my
Yeah.
child. And it's like, I don't want to keep saying it's a confidence thing, but it kind of is reverting back to a confidence thing because I feel like I'm like, you can do this. Like, take your time, raise your hand. She don't even like raising her hand in class for math. I think she just don't like math. But
I
again,
don't either. I can't blame
I
her.
I didn't like math. And this new math for teachers, okay, let's just throw this out there. Teachers, you are amazing. I welcome you on this. If you are a teacher, you're more than welcome to come on the podcast. However, teachers, let's break down some just a little bit before your son goes into school. This new algebra, my friend, that they got going.
I know. I Common Core and like how they changed them, like this makes it, it drives me insane. Whatever COVID was
Exactly.
happening, and I was doing family based during COVID,
Mhm.
and so all of my clients had to then do online schooling, and like we would do sessions with them, and they like explain their math homework. I'm like, what? Like, what is this?
The fact that my daughter was showing me the math, and I was like, what? I said, you can go to your dad. I'll do reading with you, writing with you, social studies. We can science on out, even do PE together. Great. But this algebra, y'all need to revert back to the old math. Okay. Our math, millennial math. Guys, love you, teachers. I do. Shout out. Woo woo. You do a lot. Take care of our kids, all that. Woo woo. Praise to you. But this new math, let's exit out because I thought algebra was supposed to be done in high school, not second grade. No,
Yeah,
not second grade. And then I don't believe, while we're going on a tangent here, I don't believe technology should bring like laptops coming into the forefront. My daughter had a laptop in first grade.
yeah,
Isn't that
yeah.
insane? And I feel like
You know,
there's so many like bad things. Like, don't get me
well,
on a tangent.
speaking of technology, though, that's also part of why so many kids nowadays are so anxious. Because even if they themselves aren't on social media, they might
Mhm.
have siblings, cousins, young aunts or uncles, depending on like how old like the parents were whenever they had them, that are on
Mhm.
it. So they're still seeing it. They're still
Yeah.
internalizing those messages. And like the kids, even if they're starting from kindergarten, they hear all the kids like my son's in preschool and he already heard about 6, 7. I'm like, how?
How?
No,
What?
I'm not even on TikTok. I don't watch TikTok myself. And like my son heard it. I'm like, what?
And I don't like the term that they're even using. I had to do some research behind the whole 6-7 situation because I was like, I'm not a fan of it. And I revoke it, the 6-7. I revoke 6-7. So with me, I tell my daughter, I'm like, you can't. She's like, but we use it in school. Like today was 6-7. And I'm like, if only you guys knew what this actually means. Like, I don't think the teachers would even be using the whole lingo of it. There's so many dangers around the internet too, where
Mhm.
I don't even think, personally, me, I don't even think a laptop should be prohibited in the first grade. That's just my opinion as a mom, as a safety reason. Teachers, if you have another reason why you think first graders should have computers, more than welcome to challenge and let me know in the comments. Love having feedback. But I don't feel comfortable with that. I don't think a first grader or even a second grader, maybe if you're like getting to upper levels like fifth and sixth, you going off, middle school, that situation, because you're more responsible. But for pre-K, kindergarten, first, second, I don't think it should happen.
Yeah. It's crazy too. Like my nephew, he was learning how to do coding in fourth grade. Yeah. So it's like even if they have parental locks or parental controls on those computers, kids are growing up with technology. So they're going to know how to get around those locks. They're going to know how to get around those things and then be exposed to things that they shouldn't at an early age, again, leading to more anxiety, more self doubt, depression, those like self worth questions like, oh, well, this person has their own YouTube channel and they're making millions of dollars, and I'm over here just having a rinky dinky, like 2 subscriber YouTube channel. Like, why am I a failure? Right?
Mm-hmm.
like
That
all these
comparison,
things.
we're
Yeah,
comparing in this society, and social media, I don't want to conclude saying it's dangerous, but it is. It's because it's like we always compare our hair. Is our hair worth it? Um for example, with me a little bit, I think I told my mom recently, we was on a phone conversation, and I said, I dropped weight. And she was like, good for you. And I said, yeah. I said, mom, long time ago, I said, I've been bothered about my weight since like freshman year of high school. I've always been bothered about my weight since freshman year of
mhm.
high school. And she was like, you shouldn't be. She's like, because you look good. And I was like, thanks. But I went from, for example, how going on social media, you look at somebody and you're like, dang, I mean, like, she looks good. Why can't I? But it's also because social media has been teaching us that you got to look pretty. You have to wear the makeup. You have to do this. You have to. The society has taught us that we don't get to see. And I just talked about this with somebody. You just don't get to see the reflection of a bad day. What does
Yeah,
actually your bad day looks like versus what my bad day looks like? And social media it hurts people's mental health. I think it hurts people's vibrations. I feel that it really needs to be limited a little bit more. And back to the weight issue with me is I was 176 pounds, and I thought, to me, I was like, ugh, that's just me. I'm 100, but I had compared myself because for the longest I saw photos of myself being like, literally, your mouth is about to drop. I was literally like 95 pounds. I'll have to show you a picture of me after this, and you're going to be like, Erica. So I've always had that, and my best friends will attest to this. I've always had that thing about my weight. And so
yeah.
now, after having my daughter, and I was still that, like I said, 176 pounds, I just went to the doctor recently. I had to look at the doctor twice because I was like, what? So the doctor, pretty much on a side note, was like, you were how much before? I said, well, I was about 176, 172. She said, Erica, you're 144. I said, excuse me? And when I, like, for me, I was like, that's like, in my head, I started spiraling because I was like, that's not acceptable. We can't be 144. That just can't be. Went back to the doctor 3 days later again. They did my weight again. They asked me again, how much do you think you weigh? I was like, oh, 176, 172. I said, but I recently just came a couple of days ago. You guys told me I was 144. Did it again. You're 150. Again, in my head, I'm not used to it. So I'm like, who's 150? They're like, girl, you 150. You look good for your height and everything. And I said, are you sure? Like, for a girl that's 4'11", got a little butt going on here, I was like, is that really healthy? So I want to break that stigma really quickly because you're a therapist and you know more tools than I do. You're a professional. I'm just a professional violinist, mom. Anyways, trying to make you laugh. Anyways, so what are the tools that we can talk about a little bit before we get into is it hypnotherapy?
No.
Hypnotherapy. Why do I almost had it? Okay, hypnotherapy. So before we dive into hypnotherapy, what are some positive tools that we can leave with about social media and how we can break that stigma about, for example, the society about the weight issue or not feeling loved or worthy enough?
And that's a great question. And honestly, I think I don't gonna be actually like saying like get off of it because that's not realistic in today's world. But also just kind of like being aware that it's fake. Yes, I
Mm-hmm.
know like there are people making their names as like trying to be authentic, and there are ones that are legitimately authentic. But most of the time, like it's filters. Like it is like people trying to put on their best show. It is people just trying to make people laugh. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I follow Elise Myers and Isha Brown and Don't House a Gray Man, and like I love their stuff because like they are real. But
Mm-hmm.
there's still other people that obviously put it on a show. Like if they're very attractive men, they will make themselves more attractive so that they can get the followers, which all for them because like they are very attractive. It's
Well,
just
we don't. I mean,
it's
but
airbrushed.
I feel like what's going to happen in years to come especially like, for example, how TikTok is growing. And now we may not in the near future, people are talking about bringing MySpace back, which Tom, if you're listening, bring MySpace back because that was our age and we need that.
Like, here's
I
MySpace.
MySpace, I remember my little top 5 category, my little music and all that stuff. Not for the kids though. This is for millennials
Millennials.
only, okay?
Yes.
Only for our age. Bring it back. Maybe just bring it back. Maybe just sprinkle in. I told my daughter, not off the tangent, about Spice Girls. And she looked at me like, Mom, you're old.
Jeez. Oh my gosh, I had a client. I was talking to her about AIM and AOL Messenger, and she's like, "What is that?"
You're about to make me walk away.
I felt so old. I'm like, how do you not?
How do you
This is
not
like,
know?
yeah, like it was.
I was talking, you know what and this is like a fun topic right now before we get into the next situation, before we wrap up everything. But I was talking to my mom recently about Blockbuster and how on Netflix they got a documentary about Blockbuster and there's only one Blockbuster left.
Or closed.
Nope. I think if you go on Netflix, I think it's in like Oregon. I have to look it up, but I think it's Oregon, but it's the last one left. And I was like, I was telling my daughter, and my mom was talking about it. I said, Mom, you remember how we used to have the cards and we had to scan the
Yeah.
card to go get the movies? And my daughter was like, What? You had to scan the card? And I said, Yeah. I said, I really wish we kept all of that. Like, she's just now learning about Pokemon. And she's like, I want Pokemon. I was like, I should have kept all my Pokemon cards. For those out there, if you have Pokemon cards, keep your Pokemon cards because I hear they're good trade right now. But while we're taking off some fun notes to make this conversation a little bit lighter. Now you said it's hypnotherapy, right?
Yes. Yes.
So I want to dive in a little bit about that before we wrap up and conclude our wonderful conversation for today. But what is hypnotherapy and how does it work? How does the hypnotherapy work with the EMDR?
So I love hypnotherapy. I'm gonna be honest. I love hypnotherapy way more than I love EMDR. I feel like it creates deeper healing, lasting healing, and I've done hypnotherapy for myself, and it has been a phenomenal healing journey. Because what it is you get into this deep of state relaxation,
Mm-hmm.
and you get to your deep subconscious, and it
Mm-hmm.
really gets deeper into like reconnecting your mind and your body. So like, for instance, I also have weight issues, and I would always like sabotage myself. I'm like, where is this coming from? Like, why can't I not lose weight? Why can't I not stick to a
Mm-hmm.
thing? And it goes all the way back to like my grandma making comments like, you can't wear horizontal stripes because that makes you look fat. You can't have a purse that's thicker than 2 inches on your hip because that makes you look fat. You can't do this. You can't do that. If you raise your arms above your head and your stomach shows, you can't wear those pants. Like all of these things that my grandma was saying to make me like look proper stuck with me about how my body had to be and like how I had to go. And like I would always sabotage myself with like, well, I can't achieve this. So you get really deep into those things where like you might not have known like logically.
Mm-hmm.
And you like really clear out those old held beliefs that you didn't even know were there. Because with EMDR, you have to know where to go. You
Mm-hmm.
have to know what the root issue is. With
Mm-hmm.
hypnosis, you don't. Your
Mm.
brain and your body will guide you where it needs to go. And so that to me is why I love hypnotherapy more than EMDR because it's to me it is so much more healing because you
Mm-hmm.
can really feel in your body and in your mind where those things are stored, why they're there, and how to clear them out.
That's very interesting. And you know what? That's not nice for your grandma to say those things because, like you said, it does have a lasting effect on you. Like that's not cool.
I mean, my grandma was born in the 1920s, so
Okay,
us,
we can. She gets a slight pass, but still,
yeah. So
I
I
mean,
mean, both
like
my both,
it's almost like I said, it's a generation thing. You know,
yeah.
I've heard the term of kind of saying that our generation has been on the weaker side of things. I don't believe millennials are weak. I think we handle ourselves pretty well,
Hmm. I think
especially
we're considered
with everything that has been happening and continues to transpire. I think we're doing the best that we can, especially as moms, dads, aunts, uncles. Um, I think one of the cool things about being a millennial is that we're vocal to the point, I think, where we're being like, if we're being pushed, we're very vocal. Then we'll snap and say what's on our mind. And I think we're trying to undo what's the word, generational trauma. And that's
Yeah, I
something
think
pretty
that's why
cool that we're doing.
people think that we're weak. It's because we're more open and honest about our mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's not weak though, because that let's pay the way for the Gen Zers to do what they're doing now and like
Mm-hmm.
actually bucking the system a little bit more. Like we were like the payers of it. Because like yeah, you
Right.
had like the baby boomers, you had the Gen Ys and all of that stuff, or and like
Mm-hmm.
Gen Xers and all of like their
Mm-hmm.
stuff. I mean, yes, they had their own traumas and all things that they dealt with, but like we were raised in the era of like technology really booming, learning how to navigate all of those things, dealing with the chaos of the world,
Mm-hmm.
like, and everything's still continuing on. Like, we're trying to raise children in this, so like survive ourselves, heal from our own traumas, while protecting our
Mm-hmm.
kids so that they don't have what we had.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a huge thing. And so
And
yeah,
the,
it makes all sense why people might be overwhelmed and burnt out too, because the world
mhm.
is crazy right now.
It is. It's like, and it's almost in like in the midst of not only all of that we're doing with protecting our children, but we're in the midst of trying to heal ourselves,
Yes.
heal our adult selves from our younger selves with what we were brought up, because it was different. You know, it was, the society was different. It was a little bit more safer. It wasn't like internet wasn't involved. People's comments wasn't so I want to say hypocritical. Yeah, hypocritical. And now it's gotten to the point where it feels a little bit unsafe. It feels like you
Yeah.
can't express yourself and say how, like, we can, me and you can have an agree to a disagreement. We can't even, people can't even do that anymore without it getting to the point where it's, you got to put your hands on somebody. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Learn to how to have a functioning agree to a disagree conversation. Before we wrap up this wonderful conversation, I have one huge question to ask. I have a couple more, but one huge question. What is your word of the year for 2026?
I think for me it's determination. There are a lot of goals for 2026 that I wanted to achieve, and I'm not letting anything stop me. But for me, I think determination would be the word.
I like that. I like determination. My word for this year is alignment. So anything that is positive that wants to come my way, whether it's um, just anything, you know, with being a mom, a friend, anything that aligns, I think it's going to be a good year for 2026 for us all. It kind of almost feel like 2016. Almost. I feel like we're going back in time, but it's pretty cool. So before I let you go, where can the listeners connect with you, learn more about your counseling sessions, anything that you want to leave on a positive note for moms, dads, even children,
Yeah.
um, for
They
them to
can
know?
find me on my website, lunar-counseling.com. I'm on Facebook and Instagram under Lunar Counseling LPC. And I have my YouTube channel, which is Kiara Brown Lunar Counseling. They can find me there and listen to some of my podcasts if episodes there. My biggest takeaway that I want everyone to leave with is say give yourself permission to rest, because so much of our lives is hustling, and hustling does not serve anyone but the greater capitalist collective that doesn't care about you at all. So
Mm-hmm.
caring for yourself matters way more than work, than anything else. Yes, we all need to make money, we all need to pay our bills. Totally understand that. But you're not gonna anyone if you're cooling over debt. So rest.
I like that takeaway. Well, you guys, you heard her. This has been a wonderful, wonderful conversation. Kiara, thank you so much for being on the Balanced Boss Mom podcast. I hope you return. I made you
Yes,
laugh.
that's
I
yes,
hope you
I'd love to come
return.
back.
So, as I always not stay. You could stay if you want to just look at me and we can just, you know, have a therapy session right here for a couple more minutes. As I always say, you guys, you got to give yourself some grace, give yourself some patience, love on yourselves, be kind, be nice. Like I said, social media has changed the narrative for us not to be kind, not to be nice towards ourselves. So we need to kind of turn that phone off and let that, spend time with your family and just understand that social media is not the end all be all. Again, Kiara, thank you for taking the time to be on the podcast. Until next time, like, comment, subscribe on this episode of the Balanced Boss Mom podcast. If you're a mom listening to this, send this to a friend that might resonate. If you're a dad listening to this, just know you are more than welcome to listen to this conversation and know that you deserve some grace and patience as well. Love on your kids. I don't know what else to say because I keep babbling out the mouth. But until next time, bye, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.